So good afternoon and welcome to the webinar on how analyst firms can benefit from the Analyst Value Survey. My name is Duncan Chapple. I am Managing Director here at Kia Company, and I'm going to be stepping through some slides today that I've put together with my colleague Ian Scott. Unfortunately, Ian can't join us today, but he and I have been working on the Analyst Value Survey over the last few months, and what we wanted to do was firstly step through some of the findings of the survey and 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 give our opinion of what these mean and what we're learning about the analyst industry and the way that things are working out or not working out for different analyst firms that we're talking to. After that, I want to talk about two services that Ian has developed. These two ways that we found that we're able to help a few analyst firms to benefit from the insight that we've gathered together and the methodology that we developed for the Analyst Value Survey. And we're interested in speaking to leaders of analyst firms about this for two reasons. Firstly, of course, we think you might be clients for this. We think there might be some insight there that you might be interested in getting. But secondly, you're also expert researchers. And we're sure that there's something that people on this call can contribute either in the call or in the conversations that we'll have afterwards to help us to understand what we can do to better shift these services so that they're able to meet the needs of organizations like yours more effectively. And then thirdly, we're going to have some time to open up the call for questions. So at the moment, everybody is muted. But after I've stepped through the slides, I'm going to open up the call and people will ask questions. I should also say that we are recording the call for people who've not been able to attend it. If you don't want your name to be given, then when you type in your question, say that it's anonymous, and then I won't use your name when I speak through it. If you don't want to be identified by your name, if you ask a question in the dialogue, then don't give it. And if you prefer, you can just ask something offline. So let's start to step through the material. And I think what we want to do really is start with one of the things that really surprised us the most from the survey, which was that some small firms have a lot of profile in the market. So people who are on this call have probably looked through the slides from the Analyst Value Survey, which are freely available on slideshare.net. I think it's almost 7,000 people have used these slides so far. And one of the things that didn't surprise us, of course, was that the analyst firms that came top in our survey, in the sense that these are the firms that the most people commented on, were Gartner and Forrester and IDC. That's completely unsurprising, and it would be shocking if there was anything else. But then it's interesting that we started to see some smaller firms, HFS Research, even fitted into the top 10, as you can see here. But we started to see some small firms which were able to get a lot of profile in the survey, and as we saw in the index that we put together, were able to deliver a lot of value to clients who to your clients and clients of your competitors, people who responded to our survey. Just to remind you about the participants in the survey, we had, I think, 352 participants in the survey this year. I've run the Analyst Value Survey every year since 2000, and it's the only survey of its type. It's the only survey looking into analyst value specifically. It's the only survey about the analyst industry that's surveying analyst users, which is publicly known about. There may be some unknown tracker that we don't know, but certainly this is the only study of its type that we know. And of course, it's also unique because it's a longitudinal study. So we've been doing this regularly with more or less the same questions. As the years go by, we get more and more smart suggestions from analysts about how we can improve the methodology. So there are more and more questions every year. But the core of the survey has been the same since 2000. And the participants are people who interact with analysts and analyst outputs in different ways. Most of them directly interact with analysts. Some of them read research from analysts. and others are in an ecosystem where they meet people who are often talking about analyst firms or influenced by analyst firms. Very small number of people who came into our survey did none of these things, and the survey logic routed those people straight over the survey to a final thing where they were invited to get the results of the survey. And in terms of location, obviously Ian and I and most of the Kia team are here in Europe, but in fact most of the participants in the survey were in the Americas, with a large chunk here in Europe and the Middle East, and then a substantial layer also in Asia Pacific. And the key question in the survey was, which services are you consuming from analyst firms, and how far do you value them? And I think it's worth leaving this data up for a little while, because what the survey showed us, unsurprisingly, was that your customers really value research. I mean, that's completely unsurprising. Research services are really, really popular, and research is what is used. But what was very interesting were the numbers of people who rated other kinds of services from analyst firms very highly. Now, of course, if you think about the large analyst firms, Gartner, IDC, Forrester, and so on, you know, they run most of these services fairly well. You know, IDC, of course, has a massive events business. Gartner is definitely the leader when it comes to inquiry firms. IDC does extremely well with reprint rights. Forrester and Gartner both came across very strongly in our survey as providers of advisory and strategy days. I think actually Forrester slightly overtook Gartner. I think that's my memory for strategy and advisory days. And then peer communities, perhaps the least highly demanded of these services, obviously was one where Forrester has a huge leadership. But the interesting thing for us looking at this study was actually, unsurprisingly, research and data are very far ahead. But rather surprisingly, when you look at these other five are also quite highly desired. They're also quite highly valued. And what we've seen working with mid-sized analyst firms and with smaller analyst firms is that typically they are not getting the mix right between these different services. And that means that they're not enriching the relationship with their clients in the way that they could do if they were providing a wide range of these activities, or partnering. You know, obviously not every organization can organize a peer community, but it can sponsor a peer community with somebody else who can do that. Not every organization wants to get into the business of selling reprint rights, but it's really easy to find somebody who will partner with you and sell your reprint rights for you. It's really, really hard, as I know from my time at Ovum, really hard to build up a successful events business. Really, that's something that Ovum only was able to do successfully when it built up a much closer relationship with its cousins at Informa Telecom and Media. But it's possible through partnerships to build successful events businesses. So in the conversations that we've had with analyst firms, what we've seen is generally many organizations are not understanding how strong the demand is for these other kinds of services from analyst firms. And often organizations are not really thinking creatively enough about what they can do to buy or partner or build in order to deliver these other services and to enrich their client relationships. In the survey, we asked about these 6 different kinds of services. And as you can see, we asked people to rate them, whether they were very low, low, medium, high, or very high in value. And I think what's extremely interesting is that if you look at which of these services are rated as being kind of medium, high, very high, almost all of these services are seen as being valued by 3/4 or so, 70% of the participants in the survey rate these things as being medium high or very high services. And that's a real surprise, because if you look at what analyst firms are actually delivering, you know, far fewer than 70%, for example, of analyst firms are delivering peer communities or have got serious events businesses or have even got a kind of formal workflow for supporting inquiry calls. And that's even the case with firms that are that are kind of well over the $1 million mark in their revenue. Now, these are the most tangible services that we asked about in the Analyst Value Survey. But what you will also have seen is that we've asked about a whole series of less tangible factors. And many of these less tangible factors were also huge drivers of value. That we asked users of analyst research which firms were delivering these services with the highest value. And we found that the perception of high value in a service was correlated with a number of intangible things, including the firm's independence, how independent its findings are from its commercial relationships. That is clearly a very important thing in the eyes not only of us as people who are working in and around the analyst industry, but even for users, they understand very strongly the enduring value of being seen as being independent from commercial relationships. We've also seen strong correlations in the data between other less tangible factors, such as the perceived influence that analysts have on different communities of buyers. So what we've seen is that if organizations are delivering these services averagely well, but if they are perceived as being independent, perceived as being influential, then users actually perceive these as being more valuable than they would otherwise view them. So that's a fascinating thing, that you can see that the impact, the value that analyst firms have is really a combination of something which is very tangible, and that is the strength of service that it's delivering across these 6 lines of business. But then it's also multiplied by the reputation of that firm, and in particular by its perceived independence and its perceived influence. Those were really amongst the key findings in the survey. I'm going to move on in a little bit in a little while to step through Ian's slides, which talk about the solutions that we're proposing to analyst firms who are getting in touch with us. Not many, absolutely not, but a few are getting in touch with us to discuss what we can do. I'm just going to pause to see if there are any questions about the survey itself that people want to type into the chat bar. I'm not going to pause for too long, because somehow I think the people might not. They may have read through the slides already and very diligently reviewed those, but I just want to take a moment in case there are any questions. And then if not, I want to move on a little bit further in the deck, just to talk about the 2 solutions that Ian has put together. So it's really unfortunate that Ian can't be on the call. He's a very skillful Scottish guy who I've been working with for a couple of years, and he's a sorry, there was a question there that I should just move back to about reprints rights. Yeah, are reprint rights important to end users or to vendors? And absolutely, the answer to that is actually a little bit surprising. Primarily, reprint rights are important to vendors. But actually, some people who are on the end user side also responded to say that they value reprints because it allows them to get research for free. That's one of the things that we've picked up in some qualitative work as well, that we've seen that the impact of reprints is hugely valued by end users, especially in the kind of mid-market and SOHO sector. That there are people who are not subscribing to firms and are not really in the situation where they can justify or get corporate support to buy research services. Another question about the demographic of the customers. We don't have that. I mean, we have their names and addresses, and lots of them are from really big firms. But we haven't done a demographic study of them, except that we have data which is there in the charts on slideshare.com that shows their research interests and how their research interests break down across different topics. And also we ask them to say whether they're working in the public sector or in the private sector, or working for vendors. And of course, there were around 20% of the participants identified themselves as working for analyst firms, and their results were wonderful. But you won't be surprised to hear that we removed their opinions from the results that we published. One of the things that we are doing in custom studies is collecting that information about demographics, and actually, because we have 350 people, it actually wouldn't be that hard to go through, the participants putting their names and addresses. It would be quite easy to do a follow-up survey in order to cluster that data so that we could do analysis in terms of the size of the organizations. But I would say generally that most of these people are working with fairly large organizations that I've heard of, and that definitely you will have heard of. There are no other. Those were two great questions. Thank you so much. And please do, I encourage other people to contribute questions as well as we go through. I'm going to take a sip of water, and then I'm going to move on to talk about comparative metrics, which is the first part of the solution that Ian Scott's put together for us. So Ian is a social and market researcher who's been working for, 25 years or so, developing social and market research for large organizations, principally here in Europe. I worked with him at Loudhouse, which was a marketing services firm with a strong market research offer that I was employed at up until the end of 2012. And since then, and of course he was familiar with the Analyst Value Survey, but since then, Ian's taken up responsibility for a lot of the quantitative analysis on the data from the Analyst Value Survey. And he's developed two offers that we're starting to talk to analyst firms about and actually starting to deliver in order to help organizations to leverage the results from the data more effectively. I should say, one thing that's obvious about the nature of our survey is that 352 people sounds like a lot, but really it's not a huge number of responses in the grand scheme of things. In the data that we charted in the Analyst Value Index, which is our ranking of the largest analyst firms, we introduced a cutoff of around 40 firms, 40 responses commenting on a firm for us to include it in the analysis. But as you will imagine, there is an extremely long tail. The number of firms that respondents to the survey said they were aware of was surprisingly high, and that indicates to me that we had a lot of expert users who were taking part in the study, and that these were people who were real mavens, who've shopped around the industry, and many of them were working in market intelligence roles. One of the possibilities that we have in the data is to build up a strong predictive model, simply to say, what are the observable factors? Out of the factors that we've looked at in the study, which of these are most strongly correlated with perceptions of very high value? So we've built up a tool which allows us to show how your company stacks up against whichever peers in the survey that are interesting to you. And then we're able to use the analysis that we've done by running this, basically a regression model on the data, to weight the different services, basically showing how far quality in various attributes and various services is connected with feeling good about an analyst firm, feeling that firm is delivering high value. We produce a simple dashboard that compares you to your competitors and shows areas of relative strength and weakness. So we've been looking at things like tornado analysis to see ways that we can show in a graphical way that even your colleagues can understand, what the comparative benefit is to strengthening one aspect or one service area. So that might mean that the bottleneck to your firm developing more value might be one of these tangible factors, like maybe an events business seems to be the bottleneck, or maybe not having a clear enough inquiry service. Or it might be that the bottleneck is in some of these more relational and reputational issues, like independence, like influence. What the service benchmark aims to do is very quickly and inexpensively use the data in the survey in order to show what the bottleneck is, what are the one or two priorities that you should focus on if you want to improve the value that you are delivering to clients and are perceived in delivering to clients. Of course, with some smaller organizations, you and we might share some anxiety about the sample size. And in that case, it's very easy for us to deploy the survey to a larger group of people, maybe people who've got permission to receive surveys from you. It's very easy for us to do custom collection of data in order to add more information in and strengthen the base. But still, what we would do is present it in this very simple dashboard, which gives some pretty strong management information and is really a powerful tool for organizations that have a strong bias for action. Of course, not every analyst firm does have a strong bias for action. And that's part of the reason why Ian has also developed a second service, which is a much more qualitative tool. So the comparative service diagnostic is a series of qualitative interviews, ideally done face-to-face through our network around the world, but also done through video conferencing, where we are speaking to some of your customers and some of your competitors' customers and potential customers about their experiences of the different services that they are using, which of these are more effective and which of these are less effective. I'm trying to get some insight about how you and they are contrasted, how the people you're trying to sell to are evaluating you and really feeling about you. So we do this using a quite extensive database of analyst users that we've built up over the past 13 years. And that gives us a much stronger and more qualitative idea about how you should be enhancing these services. So it might be pretty straightforward to work out which one or two services you need to enhance. But of course, the question is, how should you enhance it? Okay, you probably have a good idea for yourself. But very often what we find is that there are some issues of client understanding that organizations might struggle with. People often don't understand what the client experience is like. They haven't used their own organization as a user. They don't understand what it's like to navigate or to engage or to use in different ways the services that organizations have. And definitely on the intangible level, they certainly don't understand the ways in which it's possible to develop and amplify the reputation that you have as an organization. The last thing that's worth saying is that we found that these are really effective ways of testing and discussing new service offerings. Having discussions like this has given one of our clients really powerful insight into the way that it should be looking at a new evaluation methodology that it's been working on, and these qualifications are great for testing. So that's what I wanted to go through in the presentation today. I'm going to just pause for a little while and see if there are any questions that people want to tap into the chat, and then I'm going to unmute the phones. So unmuting the phones is always a very risky business because somebody might be in a noisy place and it might be impossible. If you have got a mute button on your phone, then I suggest you mute your phone now unless there's something that you want to ask. But otherwise, I'm going to unmute the phones and see if there are any questions. If there are, then I'll answer them. I'll try to answer them. And then if there aren't any questions, then I will wind up the call. And thank you for participating in it. So there are no more questions typed into the chat bar. I'm going to unmute everybody now. Hi there. So, wow, I can see that 3 of you have muted your phones. That's really cool. And then 5 of you are here. So there's a little bit of background noise. Please mute your phone if you're not Mike. I'm just gonna mute your mic. because there's a bit of background noise where you are. So, are there any questions that anyone wants to contribute into the conversation? Any points, criticisms? Sure, you must have some thoughts, or you may have some thoughts. Okay, questions are completely optional as well. Okay, right. So some questions coming in now. No, we didn't ask questions. So one question, did we have frequency metrics from customers? Did we ask about how often they use services? No, that's a great question to ask. Something that we should definitely consider adding in when we do the next survey in September. But we didn't ask that, and that's the kind of question that in a custom study we could very easily add in. It's a really, really good question. Actually, something that I should say there is very often we do custom analysis for clients of analyst firms where we're helping them to evaluate whether they're spending effectively or not. And there are some very interesting findings there. Very often what we find is that very, very small numbers of users represent most of the use of an organization when they're using analyst research only. So one thing that we've seen is that if an organization is offering a full range of services, it's offering events and community services and inquiry calls, then actually the user base is much wider and stronger. There's a small segment of people who are super users of written research, and those are often not very powerful people. Whereas the people who tend to be involved in community services, they tend to be very well networked in their organization. And the people who are on inquiry calls often tend to be decision makers. So actually the breadth of use really enriched the relationship, because research increasingly looks a little bit more easily swapped around. And we found that it was a little bit easier for organizations to think about churning from one analyst firm to another firm if they only had a relationship in one service area. Are there any other questions? Yeah, we're hoping for a larger sample. In fact, let me rephrase that. I mean, to be honest, 350 people. I would not call that a sample. I would call that a group of participants. Right now, with the numbers that we have, I think there are some very, very strong findings there, which are very useful when we look at the largest organizations around. But what we're starting to talk to people about, and what we would love your feedback on, is what role should analyst firms play in helping us to enlarge the survey for the next, to helping us to enlarge the number of responses for the next survey. On the one hand, analyst firms have absolutely fantastic databases of people who use their services. On the other hand, there may be some skew if these 10 firms do circulate the questionnaire and those 10 firms don't circulate the questionnaire. So we're definitely weighing up options there. I think our general feeling is that every year we do the survey, the sample grows, and it seems extremely unlikely that the sample size will be smaller. That the number of respondents will be smaller. But we're weighing up different techniques, and we would really welcome suggestions and guidance from you guys about what you think would be really effective ways to broaden out the number of respondents in the study. Great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, it would be very interesting to verticalize the questions. One of the things that we have in the survey is a very long pick list of the topics that people are interested in, and those are a combination of vertical topics and horizontal topics. And it seems reasonable, for example, that if people are interested in, if people are in the public sector, okay, that's one demographic that we explicitly have flagged out separately. But for example, if we have people who are interested in research on manufacturing versus research on finance, then it seems reasonable to think that they might be concerned with that professionally. So it's possible to segment the data in some limited ways. Basically, if you see a named variable in the results that are on the SlideShare.net site, then it's possible for us to segment the data in that way. And the other thing, of course, that we're weighing up is that the more questions we put in the survey, the lower the response rate goes, and the number of respondents that we lose between the first question and the last question is it's not pretty high, but I think we start off with 350 people on the first question, and I think at the end, I think we end up like 280 or something. No, I mean it's still a fair number, and I've had worse surveys, but it could definitely be better. But then we have to trade that up if we collect more data. Really useful questions. Thank you so much, guys. Are there any more questions? So, if you can unmute yourselves if you want to ask questions on the phone or type them into the chat bar. I think I've tried to be as clear and concise as possible. So maybe that's why there are no questions. I'm gonna probably wind up the call on that self-indulgent fantasy. And thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna follow up with each of you. Just had another question. Apart from research and reprint rights, any insight into what respondents value, communities, events, strategy days, etc.? Well, I mean, there is. I think if we kind of go back to that chart with the tables, I mean, you can see there, how far these things are valued. I suppose what would be interesting to gather through some qualitative insight is, exactly, what is the value that comes from it? I mean, presumably the value from reprint rights for vendors is that they're able to use it in content marketing. But I think it would be very interesting to step through each of these in some qualitative interviews and to see exactly what is it that people value about these different things, and what is the difference between a valuable strategy day and one which is less valuable. And definitely, what we've seen with research is that there are big economies of scale, and so larger firms definitely have a home advantage. I think the question of whether influence is strategic or tactical is very interesting as well. Though in a way, I think that's kind of internalized by asking about value. That I think some people are not in strategic roles and some people are not in tactical roles. So it's the value to them perhaps, and also different people have very different ideas of what is tactical and what is strategic. I mean, I see lots of people talking about strategic public relations, but honestly, how much strategic public relations is there in the world? So how far respondents would be able to say whether these things were tactically or strategically important? I don't know. Imagine we had a slider bar and we asked people to slide from 100% tactical to 100% strategic. I'm sure that would say something, but I don't know. I don't know what it would. I don't know what it would say. I think what would be more interesting would be to kind of drill down on particular scenarios, and to say, for procurement, how useful are these different services for procurement? So maybe that would be a particular way, would be to think of particular use cases where analysts might want to, where analyst insight or analyst services might be brought to bear in an organization, and to say for these use cases, how would you combine that? Because that would definitely help analyst firms to sell, because they would know actually why is it that people buy peer communities. There could be loads of reasons, but I think there are many opportunities to dig in and actually understand why is it that these things are so highly rated, and also why is it that such a small number of firms in the industry have really capitalized by developing a broad portfolio. Are there any other questions? Great. Well, look, the questions that we had were absolutely fantastic. My colleague Ian Scott sends his apologies. I've recorded the call. He's going to be listening to it, so he won't mind me saying that he's really frustrated that he can't make it. But obviously, family absolutely has to come first. His son needs him right now. So thank you so much for the call. Please email us if you have follow-up questions. I think it might be useful if I emailed you the slides, I guess, yeah. So I will email the slides out to you in a few moments. And really, we are hugely excited by this data, as you can tell from the fact that we made the presentation and we have this slide. We're really interested in selling these services to people, but also we are hugely interested in this. You know, it's our life's work, and we're really interested in conversations about this survey and about ways that we can help people to get insight out of it, whether or not you're interested in buying this survey. So, you know, please, if you've got questions, ideas, criticisms, we love criticisms, then please get in touch with us. There'll be a recording of this call. I'm going to put that online in a little while. And also, if you're listening to the recording, again, please get in touch with me. It's duncan.chapple@kiacompany.com, or you can find me online at Duncan Chapple. You know, just Google my name, you'll find a million ways to get in touch with me. Send me your questions, comments, criticisms, and please look out for further webinars. If you go to influencerrelations.com, you can register for my newsletter, and this will tell you about further webinars that we're running. We're doing one next Thursday on social media and how people can get the most out of using social media. So feel free to keep an eye out for other webinars that we run and join them. So I'm going to close the webinar now. Thank you so much. Glad to see that it was useful for some of you, and that all of you stayed from the beginning through to the end. That's kind of awesome. And I look forward to speaking with you all soon. Thanks very much. Bye bye.